So thank you for having us with a BIPOC Health Equity Initiative. First, I want to say thank you to Ms. Sunny Lou.
Yes.
It's Friday, I'm not going back to work, so I'm in good spirits. So I want to introduce Beth Kreidel, founder and executive director of We Bloom, Andrea Robinson, executive director of Blueprint Services, and myself, founder of the Bachelors of Arts. And I want to say hi to Marika. Where's Marika at? Hey, Marika. All right. So our presentation goals are to share how we design towards a collective impact, share how partnering towards a collective impact, and measuring collective impact. We might not talk too much about that. So who is the BIPOC Health Equity Initiative? It's a consortium of organizations dedicated to the health and equity of BIPOC communities in Indiana. And so according to Fast Forward, Race Forward, racial equity is a process of eliminating racial disparities and improving outcomes from everyone. And then health equity is a state in which everyone has a fair and just opportunity to attain their highest level of health. We agree on that, right? Any deviation from that? But we also know that racial disparities create those health disparities, right? Cool. So our vision is that all Indiana BIPOC and underserved communities have access to equitable opportunities and outcomes. In addition, our mission is to create conditions for BIPOC communities to reach their full health, economic, social potential by providing structural support, education, and advocacy. So the first part of that, the communities to reach their full health, economic, and social potential is direct alignment with the definition that the CDC offers. So our core values are that we're policy driven. And I like what Sunny Lou just said about knowing your legislator. If we don't know what's going on with our policy, we don't know what we need to change. And we often might not know what barriers that we're facing. We're also accountable, not in addition to our partners, but we actually really hold each other accountable. And sometimes it's uncomfortable, but it's necessary for us to stay focused. We're trauma-informed and resilient. And we'll talk about this later, but we do a lot of trauma-informed education and care because we know that a lot of health outcomes are rooted in trauma and those traumatic experiences. Healing aligns with trauma, and then we're sustainable. And we'll talk more, but we hope that any program, coalition that we put together is sustainable, and we are preparing groups to do so. So as of right now, our two main programs are that we are catalysts for BIPOC-led agencies. We Bloom has developed over the last year and a half an excellent model, or it's been years, ever since you started, 5 years ago. But using their model, we are a catalyst for BIPOC-led agencies, new and existing, but then also we want to position ourselves where we are actually grant makers and funders ourselves. And in addition to that, and we'll talk about this later, is that we are in the middle of implementing an excellent peer integration program where we provide ongoing training and supervision for peer recovery workers to deploy those community health workers in any institution or agency in Indiana. And we also want to use, provide livable wages for those peer recovery coaches. At this point, I will give it over to my colleague, Beth Kreidel.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Beth Kreidel, and as Derek mentioned, I serve as the executive director and co-founder of We Bloom. Right over here, the person with the phone, that's my co-founder, Kevin Esperito. And I'm so happy to be here with you today. Sunny Lou, thank you again. I don't know where she is, but I just want to say thank you again for this opportunity. And what we'd like to do now is just take a little bit of time to share about who our partner organizations are. So I'll begin by introducing We Bloom. We're 5 years old this month, so we're still a very young organization. And we started this organization when Kevin and I were living in Vietnam. And over there, we really experienced firsthand the power of being just part of the community, being in the community, connecting with folks, really listening and learning and coming alongside. And we began to formulate this vision of what would it be like to work from the understanding that communities actually do know what they need. It's often a resource issue. It might be access to those resources and knowing that there are a lot of systemic barriers to accessing resources that communities need to move forward. And so our mission is really about catalyzing health in communities. So rather than us trying to create a bunch of programs and services, we really want to connect with partners, connect with people in the community, bring kind of the best of what we have together, and provide those mutually beneficial opportunities to one another. So our purpose is cultivation of communities of love and wellness. So we kind of keep our scope pretty broad. Our core focus is catalyzing relationship-based, community-driven programs and services. So again, that does sound broad, but that's intentional because it's all about listening and connecting and being driven by the community. Just a little bit about our story. So we started 5 years ago, but 4 years ago we started a listening tour here in Indianapolis, just finding out more about what's happening in the mental health space. And very quickly we heard different themes related to substance use, severe mental health, homelessness, incarceration, trauma, and of course looking at that through the lens of systems, we see the disproportionate impact, specifically in the BIPOC community. So we were very grateful to have a connection to a program called the Recovery Cafe, which actually started out in Seattle. And we brought all of our community partners together that we had been meeting with one-on-one and presented this model with the permission of the founders out in Seattle. And folks were excited. And we were like, awesome, we have no money. So how are we going to do this? So we very quickly started talking about who has space and who can get food and who can volunteer as peer recovery coaches. And with that happening, it was very fortuitous. And I also am aware of privileges that come to play in this particular instance. But we were introduced to the Division of Mental Health and Addiction. And they were very excited about the model. They knew about it, wanted to bring it to Indiana. And so with that, we piloted the very first Recovery Cafe in the state of Indiana, which is Recovery Cafe Indy. And now we serve as the catalyst in the Midwest. So we have 13 recovery cafes that have started again. They're not We Bloom's cafes. We come alongside the community and help lift them up. And then I want to just mention too that there have been a lot of incredible things that have happened through the Department of Mental Health and Addiction. And some of that is we've launched some harm reduction street outreach teams. We've piloted discovery cafes, which are for youth. We serve as a regional recovery hub. But this is also how the seeds for our BIPOC Health Equity Initiative were planted. So we'll talk more about that in a moment. And I'd like to just share with you that a few of our, let's see. So if we could go to the next slide. So a few of our partners couldn't be here with us because they're actually right now in this moment delivering a peer recovery coach training. But I want to introduce Like Minds. So some of you may know Bree Suggs. It seems she knows so many people in the city. And she is the founder and owner of Like Minds. If you know her, you know that she's an amazing educator. She's an incredible trainer. And her sweet spot really is connecting. And without that, we can't do this work. If we're not connected to the community and the people, and we're really grassroots, on the ground, out in the community, the work goes nowhere. So she has played a huge role in this work, and we'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. And then Nate Rush, so if we want to go to the next slide, he is really a recovery coach pioneer in the state of Indiana. Some of you may know him. He's a graduate of Martin University. We were very fortunate to be connected to him. He was actually my peer recovery coach trainer, and he is now offering these training as the lead trainer on a monthly basis. So I'm sorry he couldn't be here to share his wisdom and experience today, but I wanted to introduce you to him as well. And next, I will invite Andrea Robinson to come and share about her organization.
I'm going to actually take this mic off. Okay. I feel like I'm about to sing, but I'm not. Hi, my name is Andrea Robinson, and I'm the founder and executive director of Blueprint Services, Sustainable Income, a capacity builder. I am still with an organization as their CEO for the past 7 years, and we have built the capacity from the ground up. And so, advocate. I am a huge advocator. Now my role is more advocating at the systems level, because we know that we can do the work on the ground, but we have to break those structural racist systemic systems that have been put in place that keep BIPOC-led agencies and communities at the lower ground. And Beth alluded to that a little bit in her presentation. I have 7 years with state funders and delivering family services throughout the central Indiana. My role with the BIPOC Health Equity Initiative is the peer information and providing supervision for agencies who do take on peers, ongoing training and development, and again, policy and advocacy. They say I'm the calm, but if you know me, I'm like the Tasmanian devil, so I don't know. I'm like Taz. But I'm gonna turn it over to Derek, and he's gonna talk a little bit about Bachelor's of Arts.
So I'm the founder of the Bachelor's of Arts. Our vision is that great experiences shall transform lives. But I design arts-based programs to develop social capital. As we've done at the Recovery Cafe, we've done a lot of programs aimed at using art for people to express themselves, especially in the mental health space. A lot of people struggle with expressing themselves, so kind of use art as an opportunity to get those emotions out. And then when you're ready to talk, there's a group of people ready to talk to you. But also liberal arts, so involving psychologists, social workers, healthcare administrators into programming that aims at improving quality of life and developing that social capital. But my background's in public relations, so I do a lot of storytelling, a lot of writing, but marketing communications, healthcare communications. I work for a health system here in Indianapolis, and then arts reporting. The reason I'm involved too is kind of like art equity is involved with health equity. It's a wealth thing, and so if we're shut out of another market, then we're also shut out of another opportunity to acquire wealth in the BIPOC communities. So that's how it comes together. But then also we do cultural immersion, where we try to take people out of their zip codes and expose them to different aspects of life, so that when they're in their zip code and they're faced with a situation or they're faced with pressure, people now have another perspective to present with problem solving. But if a 12-year-old is forced to join a gang or something, he may say, you know what, I like what they're doing over there, I'm going to go down that route. So we kind of want to expose people to new cultures and opportunities so that they have that perspective. And we talked about expressive healing. Then I do consulting, working in the arts environment, but then also working in healthcare. I got a broad, I done lost it, but I'm broad thinking. I knew it was going to happen. Man, all right. But my role with the initiative is I kind of facilitate connections. With our peer recovery coach training, we actually just started the development of a referral process where a local health system will actually come to our trainings, and we're developing a pipeline of peer recovery coaches to actually go work in healthcare. I'm also a convener, kind of use my communication skills to bring people together and maximize our time. We get excited when we are in these coalitions and these groups, and there's a million ideas that we have, and sometimes we have to rein it in and be realistic. And I don't want to be in this meeting for an hour and 30 minutes, so let's just keep it to the hour that we said that we were going to keep it to. It's very uncomfortable sometimes. Exactly. And then I do the storytelling. So with my background in PR, the telling the stories of people, but on a high level, the people that are doing the work, but then we also want to hear from the people that are actually benefiting from the services, but also are the ones that are actually doing the work as well. So we do a lot of storytelling so that we can share these ideas and share these concepts. And I'm kind of the creative in the group. And I'm going to turn it over to Beth.
Well, I'm just going to stay seated here if that works for everybody. We're just getting more and more comfortable as we go. So at this point, we just wanted to kind of briefly tell our story of how the BIPOC Health Equity Initiative got started. So I'll start that and then we'll go from there. So I told you a little bit about We Bloom and our partnership with the Division of Mental Health and Addiction. And we, I think, had made it hopefully very clear to them as our primary funder and to our community partners that racial equity and health equity are really one of our core areas of focus in the work that we do. And so when they came to us and said, we have some funding for a BIPOC peer expansion project, and we would like for We Bloom to be involved with that, I was over the moon excited. Even though it was a much smaller amount of money by comparison to the Recovery Cafe funding, I felt like the universe had aligned, and here we go. We actually get to like lean all the way into this work. And so I guess what I'll just share from my end is that we had learned, I think really through the work in Vietnam, I often go back to that, the importance of truly having non-transactional relationships. If you don't have friendships with folks over there, you don't get any work done. And it has to be sincere. And so the thing that was so neat about this is I told you Nate Rush and I got together and started talking about his background and knew that he would be an integral part of this work, but also said, you know what, we have friends and partners that we're already working with. So Derek literally, within the first 2 weeks of Recovery Cafe Indy opening, came in and has been just an incredible part of the whole unfolding of the program. And I wanted to mention that some of the really impactful, beautiful evidence of his work has come about through him giving a voice to our members and people who, you know, maybe could never have imagined themselves being in a place where they were healthy and housed and in recovery. And so the impact of the Bachelor's of Arts, I don't have enough time to talk about all of it, but just wanted to share that connection, that partnership started several years ago. And then Bree introduced me to Andrea, and this is also an incredible partnership that we've begun to form. It's a newer partnership, but it's also a friendship. So when these opportunities arise, I think the thing that makes our coalition unique is that we are really deeply connected to each other. We do have real conversations. We talk about, you know, how do we leverage privilege in the work that we're trying to do? How do we be strategic about who needs to show up at which particular conversation to access the resources that we collectively need? We have hard conversations, and I think transparency, especially when it comes to funding, is where everything can kind of crumble, right? All of a sudden, maybe walls go up, we start not trusting each other, and so because we had that base of trust to begin with, we're now able to navigate those conversations with a lot of trust and a lot of care. So the work started initially with the BIPOC peer expansion, and we love that, and we've got a lot we can share about that, and would love to invite you into it if any of you want to be trained as peers or know folks who do. But we began to dream and imagine something much bigger and broader than that through the BIPOC Health Equity Initiative. So the next slide just talks a little bit about what We Bloom's approach is to coalition building. And I don't really want to spend too much time on that, except just to say that showing up, being reliable, being real, that is, I think, kind of the key to all of this work, that we really are learning and growing together and recognizing that we're not all having the same experience. And so what does that mean? How do we partner together? So with that, I would love to turn it back over to Andrea, and she's going to talk a little bit more about the programs, and then we will wrap it up.
Thank you, Beth. Oh, it keeps pulling, so I can sit as well. We decided, I can't see that, my eyes. You wanted to hand me the slides. So when we discussed how we were going to present, we decided we were going to be equally present because we felt that was important we have to walk the walk, talk the talk, and if we just allow Beth to present, that's not equity. If we just allow Derek to present, that's not equity, but equity starts within our group ourselves. So the BIPOC Peer Expansion Project was the initial grant that We Bloom was given. And from that, it was outreach to the community. That was Bree's part, to begin to train community organizations, churches, grassroots, daycare workers, agency workers on trauma informed, because it's very important. Trauma is the base root and cause of a lot of the issues that we face. The Power of Together campaign, that was the Bachelor's of Arts. It's an amazing campaign where Derek went around the community and interviewed individuals, and they began to talk about their trauma, how it affected their families, the generational trauma, what they see when daycare providers, when children come in, to someone who has been involved with the criminal justice system and facing the trauma of coming out as well as the trauma of being incarcerated. The peer coach training, that's Bree and Nate's thing, and I've been trained by both of them, and let me tell you, it pushed me out of my comfort zone, especially if you've been doing this work for a long time. You're like, I've seen everything, I know that, there's no story that surprises me, or we always say you can't make this up. But it made me do the inward work so that what I understood how my trauma was playing out in my role, how my trauma, my unresolved trauma, and how I was looking, and what lens I was looking through as a provider, as a helper. I was like, ouch, I had to start taking care of myself, doing some work so I can be healthy. So if you haven't done the peer recovery coach training, if you don't want to get certified, the training in itself was life-changing. And my team back there went through the training so they could talk to it on their level. And it's free. So you don't have to worry about the cost, and that was a wonderful gift DMHA had given We Bloom in the BIPOC Health Equity, was to be able to train individuals. And so far, I think we've trained 90 individuals since July. So that's amazing. And I will talk about the other phases, but phase 1 was to begin to start the training. And employment of peer coaches, that is phase 2, finding the funding, connecting with organizations, as Derek said, health institutions, the trades, community organizations, placing peers, and it's people with life experience. And one thing that I liked about the peer recovery coach is that it doesn't matter what your background is. You don't have to have a PhD. You don't have to have an associate's degree. You have to have life experiences. And all of us in this room have life experiences. We're not monolithic. We all may look alike, our skin, but we're not monolithic. We come from different experiences, different paths. And so this training is for everyone and anyone. And it also is an amazing training for someone who has been involved with the criminal justice system, who may face barriers. Getting this certification will help open doors that they might not thought could open. So this has changed me. That's the BIPOC, thank you. So lessons learned, let me tell y'all, we have learned so many lessons in the last, it hasn't been a full year. We have learned, like Beth said, this cannot be transactional. She cannot be the gatekeeper and say, here's the money, right? It has to be transformational. It has to be an allyship. And we talk about that, what that looks like. And I speak from the lens of being a BIPOC executive, running a BIPOC agency, where the system will then go to Beth because of what she looks like and give her all this money, but yet give me pennies. And that's the systematic change and structural change that this coalition is working for. Because it's important, because she and I have the same experience, the same proven outcomes, and so those are the conversations that we have that are real and honest. And this is the first time in a space that I can speak my truth. I'm 51, so I've been doing this since my mid-20s, since graduating from college, and understanding the role of being a BIPOC leader or a worker, a provider, direct care worker, and how there's so many barriers faced before me. So for me to be given this platform, I need it to be a transition and transformational, because that's the only way we can do this. And be honest, funding transparencies, like, oh, we got this amount of money, this is what the budget looks like, this is what we have, and so there's no secrets. Because when you hold secrets and you're not, and I'm gonna be honest, y'all, $300,000 is a $5 market on the street value when it comes to running an agency. It's not a lot of money, and so sometimes funders are like, oh, we'll give you $300,000. You're like, oh my gosh. No, you're worth more than that. Understand your worth. Advocate for your worth. Clearly defining our roles. We have strategic meetings, like what is our role in this? Who are we? Blueprint, I wasn't part of the training. That wasn't my role. I was supportive. I went through the training. The Together We Can campaign, that wasn't my role, but I was supportive. My role is going to be integrating peers into our system. Being honest and realistic about our capacity. Sometimes I think I wear a cape. How many in here think they're like superheroes? Right. Man, woman, child, you think you're a superhero, you think you can do it all. And when you see what our communities need, we take that on, because when we're part of the BIPOC community, we just don't look out for ourselves. We see our incarcerated uncles, we see our drug addicted sisters, we see our mother with mental health, we see everything. And so we want to have the capacity to do everything. I could do that, but understanding to say, your yes is powerful, but your no is more powerful. To say, no, I can't do that, but I can direct you to someone who can. Being strategic, that is the word of the day. Strategic, because all money ain't good money. All partners, just because ain't good partners. It might be the biggest corporation in the state of Indiana. That may not be a good partner for you. And understanding that community capacity, is this sustainable? This money you're giving me, how long is it going to sustain our organization? How long is it going to sustain our community? Or are we giving false dreams and realities to people to let them down, which then reinforces their trauma? Time, I read something, patience and time are the biggest warriors. Having patience and time, you can conquer anything. And really being realistic with the people, say, this is what we have. This is what we can do. This is our plan to move forward, so that people don't feel disappointed. And allow for learning. Like, I'm a lifelong learner. My background is in elementary education. I believe that learning is consistent. Learning from each other, learning from our communities, and being silent and learning how to listen. My team always tells me I don't listen, so they're probably laughing right now. Balancing your resources versus your community needs. You have $300,000. Your community needs are like 2.5 million. Let's balance some resources. You can't do everything, but what you can do, make an impact. Make it be intentional impact. And holding these funders accountable for allocating funds. It's one thing for me to sit here and say it and going and beating down the door, Derek, but collectively, our voice can be powerful. Collectively, with our allies, our voice can be powerful. We have to do it collectively in the system. I'm sorry, I'm gonna wrap it up. I see Sunny over there, I'm gonna wrap it up, girl. I got on myself. Collectively, we can be powerful, but when we don't hold each other accountable in that collective work, that's when the system is set up for us to be against each other. It would be easy for me to say, oh my gosh, I can't stand Beth of Weebloom. Here DMH go again, giving this white girl some money. No, it's the system, it's not Beth. Beth is an amazing person. I like Beth. And so together, collectively, we're going to dismantle the system. Okay, our next steps. Grow and sustain our peer expansion program. Continue to developing our infrastructure, because we're like, how many months? 9 months. We're not even on solid foods. So expand our Catalyst program and develop equity partnerships within the consortium. Next slide, please. So our call to action today is developing listening sessions. We want to hear from our community-based organizations. What is it that you need? What voice do you want to be heard at the table? And we want to hear from funders. So it's easy for us to say, oh, this is our email address. Send us an email. So what we're going to ask you to do, if you have a business card, please bring it up to us, because we'll reach out to you. We're going to just, only work you have to do is give us your business card. If you're like me, I didn't bring one today. So, so any questions for us? It's early. It's Friday.
We have information on the peer training.
Yes, we have information on peer training. So what we can do, you see Jayla right there. If you can give Jayla your information, that'll be great. She didn't know she was working today.
Across the entire state?
Yes, our plan is to work across the entire state.
We have focused more on Marion County to start with, but the vision that the state has and that we have is to be able to work across the state. Part of it is, our main trainer was also kind of recovering some of his health pieces, and so now we're ready to roll. So if you are from another part of the state, please let us know.
No? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.